The world of RDR1.
We don't do deals with outlaws, boy.
The year is 1911, and the Wild West, well, it's packing up. Steam trains are replacing horses, telegrams are outpacing gunfights, and men in bowler hats are showing up with clipboards instead of revolvers. The outlaws are losing, the law is winning, and caught right in the middle is John Marston. Now, John's not your average cowboy. He was an outlaw, rode with Dutch van der Linde's gang back in the day. But now he's trying to live straight. He's got a wife, Abigail, and a teenage son, Jack, a little ranch, a quiet life. You know, chickens, fences, the dream. Except the government doesn't care about dreams. Enter Edgar Ross, a smug little weasel from the Bureau of Investigation, think FBI, but with more mustache and less oversight. Ross snatches John's family and makes him an offer he can't refuse. Hunt down your old gang, the men you once called brothers, or never see your family again. Classic government hospitality. So, with nothing but a revolver, a horse, and a chip on his shoulder, John sets out across the fading West, across New Austin's dusty plains, into Mexico's war-torn hills, and up to the prim streets of West Elizabeth. 57 missions, 3 regions, 1 reluctant redemption tour. Before all this, John was just a half-orphaned kid, son of a Scottish drunk and a prostitute, both long gone by the time he was young enough to need them. He found a home in Dutch's gang, grew up robbing banks, and lived by a broken code of loyalty. And now, that past is knocking on the door. Except this time, John's not riding for riches. He's riding for something much harder to earn: peace. The West might be dying, but John Marston's past, it's still kicking, and it just came knocking with a badge. The hit list.
Bill, I've come for you!
You must think I was born yesterday.
We meet John in 1911, 12 years after the dust settled on Red Dead Redemption 2, even though that game came out later. By now, John's seen too much, lost too much, and honestly, he's just trying to survive one last mess. But the mission is clear: bring down 3 men from his old gang, dead or alive. First up, Bill Williamson. Beardy, sweaty, and about as sharp as a sack of wet oats. Bill was once a brother in arms. Now he's holed up in Fort Mercer playing king of the desert with a gang of cutthroats. John rolls up, tries to talk sense into him, and ends up catching a bullet for his trouble. Classic Bill. Then there's Javier Escuella, a smooth-talking schemer who smells trouble a mile away and runs twice as fast. As soon as he catches wind of the law breathing down his neck, he dips south to Mexico. John follows because, of course, he does. No rest for the kidnapped. Last but not least, Dutch van der Linde, John's old leader. A revolutionary, a philosopher, and also a borderline cult leader. Dutch once spoke about freedom and loyalty like it was gospel. Now, he's just another madman with a cause and a body count. And sure, Red Dead Redemption doesn't give Dutch and Bill a ton of screen time, but that's where Red Dead Out comes in. There, you live shoulder to shoulder with them. You ride with them, rob with them, and slowly watch the whole thing rot from the inside. By the time you get to this story, you're not just hunting outlaws. You're chasing the last threads of something that used to feel like family. Now, don't get it twisted. John doesn't exactly have the warm fuzzies for the government forcing him into this job. But he's not shedding tears for his old gang either. They left him bleeding in the dirt after a botched bank job in 1906. That nasty scar running across his face? Yeah, he earned that the hard way. And the story behind it? Let's just say RDR2 fills in those blanks with a lot of blood and betrayal. So here we are, 3 names, 1 man, and a whole lot of baggage. They say you can't outrun your past, but John Marston's riding straight into it with a revolver and a grudge. Teaming up.
Excuse me.
And what you want?
My name's John Marston. You wanted to speak to me.
After tracking down Bill Williamson to the heavily guarded Fort Mercer and giving him a heartfelt, let's talk this out, Bill responds with a bullet to the gut, right in the stomach. Real brotherly stuff. Luckily, John doesn't bleed out in the dirt. He gets scooped up by Bonnie McFarlane, a rancher with a spine of steel and absolutely zero time for nonsense. She patches him up, gives him a place to heal, and in return, John helps out around the farm, herding cattle, shooting coyotes, chasing off carrot-napping rabbits. The Wild West might be dying, but it's still weirdly obsessed with pest control. Once he's stitched up and mostly walking upright again, John makes his way to Armadillo, a dusty frontier town with more trouble than teeth. There, he befriends Marshall Lee Johnson, a man who looks like he's one bad day from retiring straight into the grave. Together, they ride out to slap cuffs on criminals and shoot the ones who don't like cuffs. During this time, John starts teaming up with some real characters. First, there's Nigel West Dickens, a snake oil salesman who'd sell holy water to a priest if he could mark it up 40%. He's shady, dramatic, and somehow allergic to walking anywhere without making a speech. Then we meet Seth Briers, who's basically Gollum if Gollum was American and in love with corpses. Seth has a thing for grave robbing and talking to the dead, which is somehow still less creepy than his smile. And then there's Irish, just Irish. A walking whiskey barrel with a gun, an accent, and a 50-50 chance of forgetting where he put your dynamite. He's the kind of guy who can't finish a sentence without falling off his horse, and that's on a good day. Despite this band of misfits, John pulls things together. He wrangles this, let's call it, team, and preps a full-scale assault on Fort Mercer. There's a plan, there's a wagon, there's even a mounted machine gun. It's all very cinematic. But plot twist, Bill Williamson is already gone. Turns out, while John and company were busy being dysfunctional, Bill skipped town like a rabbit with a bounty. He's headed south, straight into Mexico. So after all that gunfire, betrayal, and grave digging, John's left with nothing but smoke, bullet casings, and a hangover courtesy of Irish. They say teamwork makes the dream work. Unless your team includes a drunk, a con man, and a guy who talks to skeletons. Coming to Mexico.
Hey, gringo! Take off the boots, Americano.
Soon enough, word reaches John that both Bill Williamson and Javier Escuella have taken up residence in Mexico. Because when your crimes catch up with you, obviously the best move is to hide in a country currently in civil war. Flawless logic. So John teams up with Irish again for the worst river cruise imaginable. Picture this. A homemade raft, a drunk guy barely steering, and dozens of gunmen trying to turn you into Swiss cheese. It's like a spa retreat. If your idea of a spa includes dodging bullets and hoping your guy doesn't pass out mid-paddle. But once John finally steps onto Mexican soil, something magical happens. As he rides across the sweeping plains, the sky wide and heavy, Jose Gonzalez's haunting ballad, Far Away, kicks in. It's a rare moment of peace. No shootouts, no yelling, just a lone cowboy riding into the unknown. The game slows down, and for a minute you feel it. The weight of his mission, the loneliness, and that sinking sense that this isn't going to end well. It's one of the most iconic moments in gaming, period. But don't get too cozy, things go sideways fast. John finds himself smack in the middle of a civil war between the corrupt government and a ragtag rebellion. And in classic Marston fashion, he works both sides. On one hand, he's helping Colonel Allende, a sleazy official who wouldn't blink at setting fire to a village if it meant better PR. On the other, he's helping Abraham Reyes, a revolution-spouting Casanova who talks about freedom like it's foreplay. In between uprisings, John somehow finds time to rob a train, duel aging gunslingers, and navigate more betrayals than a soap opera. Eventually, though, the pieces fall into place. He corners Javier Escuella, the smooth-talking traitor who ran south the moment things got tough. You can choose to haul him back alive or just skip the paperwork and deal with him permanently. Either way, I'm one down. And then, finally, Bill Williamson. The man who shot John, ran to Mexico, and hid behind other people's guns for half the game. With Reyes leading the charge, the revolution burns Allende's regime to the ground. And in the chaos, John gets his shot. Literally. Bill meets his end, and Marston ticks another name off his bloody list. But don't think for a second this means it's over. Mexico gave John a soundtrack, a revolution, and a bullet with Bill's name on it. Not bad for a guy who started the trip on a leaky raft with the drunk. Coming to the third location.
So, this is the office of an anthropologist named McDougal.
With Bill and Javier taken care of, one dead, the other cuffed, Marston heads back north, hoping he's finally done with government errands. But of course not. This is Red Dead. You don't finish missions. You get dragged into new ones with worse consequences. His next stop? Blackwater, the shiny, civilized jewel of the West, where men wear suits instead of spurs and horses share the road with automobiles that stall every 5 feet. Compared to the dusty chaos of New Austin and the revolution-soaked Mexico, Blackwater feels like walking into a different era. John looks like he's been time-traveled forward 30 years and forgot to change clothes. It's here John links up with maybe the strangest character in the game, Professor Harold McDougal. He's an academic type with a lot of opinions and very little survival instinct. But despite his high society quirks and a mildly worrying fascination with savage psychology, McDougal proves useful. He's got the intel that leads John toward his final ghost, Dutch van der Linde. But before any tracking down Dutch can happen, John ends up in a literal rooftop sniper war, defending the jittery professor from every sharpshooter in the zip code. Apparently, tutoring comes with a body count these days. Once Dutch's location is confirmed, John teams up with a full-on army unit to chase him into the forested wilderness of tall trees. It's one of the most beautiful and dangerous parts of the game. Towering pines, misty mountain passes, and plenty of places for outlaws to shoot you in the face. After clearing Dutch's camp and gunning down most of his new loyalists, which, fun fact, include disenfranchised Native Americans he's inspired with big speeches, John finally catches up to the man himself. But in true Dutch fashion, he doesn't go quietly. He doesn't even go violently. He goes philosophically, talking about nature, cycles, and the futility of fighting change. Then, in one final dramatic flourish, he steps off a cliff like it's the end of a Shakespeare play. No bullet, no duel, just a long fall and a short goodbye. Dutch always said he had a plan, and that plan was a poetic monologue and a 100-foot drop. The price of peace.
My name's John Marston. Can I speak to your commander?
You want to talk to my boss, gringo?
With Dutch dead and the mission officially over, Edgar Ross finally gives John what he's been chasing this whole damn time. Freedom. No more manhunts, no more civil wars, no more snake oil shootouts, just a handshake and the promise that he can go home. So, John Marston rides back to Beecher's Hope, the little ranch nestled in the heart of West Elizabeth, and for the first time in a long time, he breathes easy. He reunites with Abigail, Jack, and the ever-grumpy uncle, whose relation to the family is still very much a mystery. Let's be honest, he's like that one guy at every barbecue who no one invited, but everyone just kinda let stay. Life slows down. Outlaws and bounty posters are traded for cows, fences, and actual family time. John teaches Jack how to hunt, helps Abigail with chores, and even rides over to McFarland Ranch for a little business and a lot of closure. His brief reunion with Bonnie is all class, a respectful nod between two people who once weathered a storm together. No drama, no weird tension, just mutual respect and a shared past. It's the ending we all hoped for. Quiet mornings, golden sunsets, maybe a dog named Buster. Marston even cracks a smile once or twice. And then, the government does what it always does. Edgar Ross, the same man who promised peace, shows up with an entire hit squad. Soldiers, rifles, the works. Turns out Ross wasn't looking to close a case. He was erasing witnesses. John knows what's coming. He's not naive, but he's still got one job left. For Abigail and Jack. In one of the most iconic and devastating moments in gaming, John barricades the barn doors, kisses his wife and son goodbye, and walks into the sunlight with his revolver. He opens the doors. A dozen rifles open fire, and John Marston falls. Not like a villain, not like a legend, but like a man who tried to do right in a world that wouldn't let him. If your eyes didn't sting a little watching that slow-motion collapse, well, maybe double-check your pulse, because that death scene doesn't just hurt, it hangs. Abigail and Jack return to find him lifeless in the dirt, and what follows is a quiet, gut-punch funeral. Just wind, dust, and loss. 4 years later, the screen fades back in. A little older, a little colder. Jack Marston stands over his mother's grave, now beside his father's. The ranch is still. The sky feels heavier. And just like that, you realize you're not done. Jack holsters up, and the world map reveals one final stranger mission. Jack may not be John, but he knows how this story ends, and it ends with Edgar Ross. John died trying to break the cycle. Jack lived long enough to reload it. In the end, Red Dead Redemption wasn't just about revenge. It was about legacy, and blood remembers. One last kill.
Excuse me, you Edgar Ross?
Do I know you?
Jack Marston carries everything John left behind. Guided by grief and a quiet fury, Jack heads into Blackwater, following a whisper trail of names and vague directions. Eventually, Jack tracks Ross to a riverbank deep in Mexico, where the man who orchestrated John's death is living out his retirement. Shotgun in hand, ducks overhead, and zero regrets. Jack doesn't arrive with the posse. He doesn't even raise his voice. He just stares, the way someone does when justice and vengeance have become the same thing. Ross still blames John, blames the life, says it was bound to happen, that it was never personal. Jack disagrees. What follows is a duel, a short one. One crack of the revolver later, Edgar Ross is floating face first in the river, right alongside the ducks he meant to shoot. No last words, no glory. Just a quiet, wet ending to a very loud life. Jack stands there a moment, staring at the revolver in his hand, the same kind of gun that shaped his entire childhood, and probably just shaped the rest of his life. He holsters it, then, without a word, he walks off into the sunset. Just like his father, but maybe not for the same reasons. And then the credits roll, to the sound of Dead Man's Gun by Ashtar Command, a haunting echo of everything that's come before, of everything that's been lost, and of a West that's long dead, but still refusing to lie down. Jack didn't get the life his father wanted for him, but he sure got the ending John was trying to avoid. In the world of Red Dead, peace is just the silence between gunshots.